All right, let's talk about snobbery. And I mean the snobbery on the left side of the aisle, the liberal snobbery. So this exists. It exists in the conservative sphere, which I'm going to make a video on too, but it also exists in the liberal sphere. Progressives, people on the left, broadly consider themselves to be the more inclusive ones, the ones who are not elitist, the ones who are not classist. But at times we see some forms of snobbery. Let's just be real. And I think it's a good time to talk about this, considering we just had an election where the liberal side did not do all that well. In fact, did quite poorly in most ways. So what is snobbery? Snobbery is basically the concept of just looking down your nose at someone, thinking yourself to be superior to them to be inferior, based on whatever. It's usually not the same thing as like racism or sexism or homophobia, but yeah, it's usually just the idea that like you're presumptuous and you're better than them, holier than thou, you know. So with that in mind, I'm sure you all know what snobbery is, but yeah, with that in mind, let's talk about liberal snobbery. We have to talk about this education thing that people on the left tend to bring up, because it's true that people on the right and people who vote for Republican candidates tend to be less well educated. They are more likely to have not gone to college, to have not obtained an undergraduate degree. That's a simple fact of the matter. Now, what does this say about them? I mean, you can't really say all that much. In general, studies have found that people on the left are more intelligent than people on the right. That is true. There are actual studies that support that idea. But does this mean that people who go to college, people who vote Democrat, should be out publicly insulting the intelligence of people who vote Republican based on the fact that they haven't completed a bachelor's degree or something like that? Look, so I mean, I got my undergrad degree. I'm in law school. I'm well educated, but I do not look down my nose at people who aren't educated. If you watch this channel, you know I've taken shots at the Republican Party and some in the Democratic Party, but I never do so based on the idea that they're poorly educated, that they don't understand things because of that lack of education. Now, lack of education can cause a lack of understanding in things, but we can't presume that. We can't just treat ourselves as prima facie, by our very nature, better than or smarter than others just because we're educated and they are not. And by educated, I mean having gone to college. You learn a lot of things in college. It is really helpful. I disagree with the conservatives who bash college, say that it's a waste of money, say that you don't learn anything, at least for most majors, they say that. Look, it is what you make of it, and you can make a lot of it. But just because you choose not to go to college doesn't mean you're not smart, doesn't mean that you're not talented, doesn't mean that you don't have the ability to make an informed voting decision, to understand politics, to understand policy, to understand democracy and our Constitution. There are a lot of problems with voting for Trump, but I don't know if it's poor education that's really causing people to vote for Trump. On the other hand, though, and I'm not saying this is something that sways elections, because of course it's not. It's just something I see. Liberals, Democrats need to stop emphasizing, oh, we're more educated than you. And where have we seen this? I wouldn't say it's a major thing in the Democratic Party, but remember that time that Donald Trump said that, oh, I love the poorly educated and the poorly educated love me. And liberals had a field day with that one. You will find that in the anti-Trump Facebook pages, the anti-Trump X pages, formerly Twitter. It's just a popular thing to make fun of him for. It is really weird phrasing too, by the way. He said poorly educated. But look, these are people who vote too, and they're not automatically unintelligent or less intelligent than you just because they are, quote, poorly educated. So I get that liberals have a lot of fun laughing at Trump and mocking him because he's basically admitting that people who are poorly educated might be predisposed to liking him, and that almost hinting like, hey, if they got better education, they would realize what's wrong with Trump, and they would realize that the Republican Party sucks or whatever, and that conservatism is bad and stupid. Look, education can help you with a lot of things, and I'm sure that it could help people understand the harm that certain conservative policies have had, the harm that they've inflicted. But let's just not just like laugh people off, write them off, just because they're less educated. So yeah, Trump wins the uneducated. That is true. Is that something to make fun of him or his voters for? I don't think so. I don't think it accomplishes anything. We should focus on rhetoric that wins elections, focus on informing people and not berating people for supposedly not being well informed. So just think twice before you go on social media and post about how Trump voters are uneducated and therefore stupid. Another thing that's part of this snobbery, I would say, is some of the diversity thing. Now, diversity, of course, is something that the United States has plenty of and that has generally helped the United States in many ways. But let's be real. Some of this diversity, equity, and inclusion ideology does get a little snobbish, a little presumptuous. Some of these types, for example, if they see, oh, someone has a friend group of all white people. Whoa, look at this. This isn't a diverse group. Look at all these whites. Again, does that mean that they're racist? No. Does that mean that they're uninformed on issues affecting people of color? No. So whoever people make friends with is whoever they make friends with, okay? If you see a group of all white people, don't assume that there's some racism, explicit or implicit, going on there. It is what it is, you know? So I'm of the position that diversity is good, but that we should not berate or laugh at lack of diversity. You know, it kind of goes in line with what MLK said. And I think that unfortunately conservatives, they kind of have a point when they use this particular issue to criticize DEI. I'm not saying DEI is wrong about everything, that all these initiatives are just communism or whatever, but I'm saying people who are liberal leaning, people on the left, should not be so obsessive about race, should not look at people and say, oh wow, you have a really undiverse group of friends, what's going on here? Whatever, just let people be people. Or sometimes on social media, you'll see like a picture of a Republican with their group or whatever, you know, a Republican type club or something, and you'll get someone on the left commenting, look at all these white people, look at all this snow or something. And that's not helpful. It's just not. And even if it's a joke, and even if it's totally harmless, which for the most part it pretty much is, it just makes people on the left look bad. Looking obsessed with race is never a good thing. It never is. It's bad when Donald Trump obsesses with race. It's bad when Democrats obsess with race. So yeah, I guess that's another form of the snobbery that exists. I would say the more troubling one is the one about education. People cannot get educated for a whole variety of reasons. Some of it can be finances. Do you really want to attack someone as unintelligent if they simply weren't able to afford to go to college? No. We should try to make college more affordable. And that's something that progressives are in favor of. So while you're trying to make college more affordable for people, don't act snobbish towards people who are not educated, who are less educated than you, who may not understand certain high-level issues, certain college-level subjects. So yeah, I would say the education thing and the diversity thing. Progressive voters, progressive activists could stand to improve on those things. That is what I would consider to be liberal snobbery. I will move on to discuss conservative snobbery in another video. Stay tuned for that. Please watch it. I think conservative snobbery is the more problematic one. So I'll probably have more to say about that. But yeah, I hope that you enjoyed this video. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I look forward to speaking to you in the next video.